disappear.
Good evening and welcome to Inside City Hall for Friday, October 31st, 2025. I'm Bobby Kuza. Early voting ends this weekend and more than 480,000 New Yorkers have already cast their ballot. By borough, Brooklyn is in the lead with more than 156,000 votes. Manhattan is not far behind, and there is still time if you have not yet voted. Polls open Saturday and Sunday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And the race is still on for the candidates looking to grab as many votes as possible ahead of Election Day. 4 days out from Election Day, and the mayoral candidates are out pounding the pavement. Cuomo courting Republicans, Mamdani courting seniors, and Sliwa trying to scare voters on Halloween. Our Dan Rivley was out on the campaign trail today, and he joins me now with tonight's top story. Good evening, Dan.
Good evening, Bobby. The three candidates were all doing the same thing, courting voters who are typically outside of their base. So for Cuomo, he got the support of GOP Councilwoman Ina Vernikov and spent the afternoon in Brighton Beach. Mamdani was talking to seniors, trying to bring them into his campaign that has been driven by a youth movement. And Sliwa, well, Sliwa was doing what Sliwa always does in the subway, meeting voters where they are.
Dumplings from Russia.
Andrew Cuomo having a nosh in Brighton Beach with Ina Vernikov, a Republican city councilwoman. She endorsed Cuomo and brought him to a lunch spot to meet community leaders in this conservative part of the city. So they vote for him and not the Republican candidate, Curtis Sliwa.
This is not a normal election to play normal politics.
Vernikov said that many of the Russian Jewish residents there fled the socialism and anti-Semitism of the Soviet Union, and a Mayor Mamdani would bring that to New York.
This community is absolutely petrified of this garbage coming here.
Vernikov had backed Sliwa, but she says he can't win.
A vote for Curtis Sliwa, unfortunately, is a vote for Zohran Mamdani.
Vernikov also praised Cuomo as an experienced governor.
I understand. We have qualms with the governor. We understand that. But he's somebody that we can work with.
Meanwhile, Zohran went zen, doing Tai Chi at Grand Street Settlement in the Lower East Side to meet older New Yorkers.
A lot of times people think cost of living is a young person's issue. But I have heard from so many seniors of how they are being pushed out of the city that they helped to build.
It's Mamdani's effort to court seniors to a campaign that resonated with young voters.
We had an opportunity to not only do Tai Chi, to not only try and keep up with the seniors who are dancing, but also to make the case that now is the time to deliver an affordability agenda for seniors who are being pushed out of the city they call home.
Curtis Sliwa tried to scare New Yorkers about his opponents.
He'll suck the taxpayers dry.
That'd be Mamdani as Dracula, sucking taxpayer money for freebies, Sliwa says. And Cuomo the mummy.
You see, Andrew Cuomo is clearly the political zombie who's come back from the dead.
And of course, Sliwa staying in this race till the end after weeks of Republicans trying to get him to drop out. And he says he's staying in and also going to help all the other Republicans down the ballot, Bobby.
I mean, it seems like Cuomo these last, I don't know, couple weeks has really unabashedly made a play for Republican voters, right? I mean, it seems to be his almost singular focus at this point. I mean, how is that dynamic playing out? Because he's obviously encroaching on Sliwa's turf. What is Sliwa's response? And is any of this seem to be working?
So, you know, I spoke to one of the gentlemen who was dining with Vernikov and Cuomo. He runs a local business association there. He is a registered Republican. I asked him, and he said, look, he liked Cuomo as governor and wants to support him, and definitely does not like Mamdani. And one of the concerns is among him and the business community was property taxes. Doesn't want to see taxes go up. So, look, Cuomo needs those voters if he has any chance of outflanking Mamdani. And I think Cuomo is doing the best job he can to try to convince those voters that Sliwa had his chance to campaign, and it's not working. Of course, Sliwa is trying to tell voters, look, where's Cuomo? He's never out here. I'm in the subway. I'm on the buses. I'm on the streets. He's got the live campaign. Cuomo, as you saw, is nothing but a walking mummy in Sliwa's opinion. So he's trying to make sure voters know that he's still in it. And more key to Sliwa, that Mamdani and Cuomo are the same kind of person when it comes to crime.
Right. All right, Dan Rivley, thank you so much for that report. 2 years ago, a Republican councilwoman, Christy Marmorato, flipped a seat in the southeastern part of the Bronx. Now she is facing her first re-election campaign and hoping that her work preserving the neighborhood will be enough to fend off a bid from the Democrat who is challenging her. Our Kelly Mena has more in this report.
Whether in rain or shine, Shirley Aldebal is out talking to voters. The first-time Democratic candidate is hoping her ground game will be enough to win her a seat in the city council.
I think it's important for people to feel heard and seen because there's a lot of hopelessness out here.
In February, Aldebal left her executive position at 32BJ to run for office. Council District 13 covers parts of the Bronx like Pelham Bay, Morris Park, Throngs Neck, and City Island. The district is known for its opposition to development, including affordable and supportive housing. The district was set to house the formerly incarcerated through the Just Home project, but was blocked at the last minute. Aldebal said she would be different.
I don't think that, upzoning is a bad thing. I just think that we have to be mindful of the community that it's going to be built in. And we also have to make sure that the housing is really affordable. There's no easy answer, and there's no, I don't always start with like, it's got to be a no, right? It's got to be like, okay, tell us what this is. We need some assurances. We need some, we need to resolve these issues. And then if you don't do that, you're really squandering your leverage as a city council member.
On the lack of transportation in the area, Aldebal said,
it may require a redesign of transportation because we may have the same bus lines running, and there's been changes in, changes in the population of the district. So, like, where are people needing to go?
Aldebal is not only looking to unseat the incumbent, but flip the district blue. Registered Democrats outnumber Republicans nearly 4-1.
People crossed over party lines to support me in my first election, and I feel confident that they're going to do it again this time.
Republican Councilwoman Christy Marmorato flipped the seat 2 years ago amid a backlash to a new housing project. She remains a strong opponent to new projects, including the bid for a casino license at Bally's.
Yes, jobs are a great thing, and construction jobs as well. But there are people that have invested in this community who felt like they never had a say in this proposal. Hopefully Bally's financial situation is on point or where it should be, because I'm reading a lot of stuff that it's not. So I don't know if they can even get to that position.
Bally's chairman Sue Kim has told New York One that they are financially sound. Marmorato is against the housing ballot measures that would diminish local influence over projects.
It's going to be the end of the picket fence neighborhood.
Kelly Mena, New York One.
It is time now for a break. Coming up, we will take a look at some of the mailers and pamphlets that city voters are receiving in the lead up to Election Day. Political anchor Errol Lewis will join me to break down this year's campaign messaging. And later, I'll talk more about the latest on the mayoral campaign trail with just days to go in this election cycle when I'm joined by two top reporters. Stay with us. We're back in a minute.
Every day tells a new story. At Mornings on One, we're dedicated to bringing you the stories that matter most to start your day. With in-depth coverage of the day's developing news.
I'm Pat Kernan. Here are the stories we're following this morning.
And weather updates every 10 minutes.
Some morning sunshine possible, clouds take over.
It's our responsibility to get you the information you need before you head out the door. Mornings on One, weekdays starting at 6 on the Spectrum News app. Free for Spectrum customers.
Spectrum TV, isn't that only live TV?
No, it's only all my favorite streaming apps with live TV.
Okay.
It's only all included at no extra cost, and that's the magic of math. Will this be on the test? Sure, why not?
It's only one simple payment for all our TV. We gotta simplify and win. Winning is equally important.
If not, more so.
Yeah!
Only Spectrum TV, fixed TV.
I'm Sandra, this is Jorge, and we were adopted in 2019. I remember when they first came to us, Michael was already a teenager. The whole cliche of, they're so lucky to have you guys, and it's the other way around. They have changed our family for the better. They chose to love us. They didn't have to. They chose us. Family.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org.
And that's a look at some of what's in the papers this morning. You've done at the sports section.
Today's story is about the latest chapter for a beloved local business.
It's a beautiful day with temperatures in the 60s, but showers are expected in the next hour.
In a city that's always on the go, it's important to stop to hear the stories that connect us.
The news that matters to New Yorkers. That's what brings us together. That's Mornings on One.
Weekdays starting at 6.
Exclusively on Spectrum.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. Election Day is only 4 days away, meaning candidates are running out of time to get their message out to voters. And not just candidates, but also groups advocating for and against the 6 proposals that are also on the ballot this year. One way campaigns have been trying to get the word out is through mailers and pamphlets. And joining me now to break down some of that campaign literature is political anchor Errol Lewis. Errol, I know you've got a pile of mailers to get through. Let's see some of what you got.
Okay. Now, there's a day that will come when all of this is digital, but that day has not yet arrived. So here's a sample of what people have been getting in their mailboxes. This is a pro-Cuomo palm card. They call it a palm card because it would fit in your palm. And it's very straightforward. It just says, you know, New York City mayor is not an entry-level job. New Yorkers know better than to treat it like one. Clearly a slam at Mamdani. Andrew Cuomo delivered for New York, and he will deliver again, it says on the back. That's very, very standard. Very crowded. You have to actually read it, so that's what you get. Now, Zohran Mamdani is doing something similar. They have flooded New York with this. I found one of these under my, you know, the windshield wiper on my car.
I got one under my apartment door, actually.
They put these absolutely everywhere. Vote for Mamdani, vote for Mamdani, and again, sort of crowded. On the back, it's in Spanish, pretty much the same message. Some pictures of Letitia James and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, as well as the union bugs for some of the unions that are supporting him. Very short, compact, very standard. I think they get more creative when it comes to their digital ads. Now, here's one. Dangerous. You know, sort of saying, likely to cause harm, instability, or risk public safety. Example, it would be dangerous for New York if we were to elect anti-police, pro-criminal candidates like Andrew Cuomo or Zohran Mamdani. So now who's putting this out? Well, I guess by process of elimination. A vote for Curtis Sliwa means, you know, good things. Law and order, quality of life, clean streets, affordability. This is a Curtis Sliwa ad. Now, down at the city council level, this is kind of interesting because some people do this better than others. And I'm showing this, and across the board, I'm not endorsing any of these candidates. This is not intended to, but this is just a very good flyer. This is Vicky Palladino, the Republican running for re-election. Up in Northeast Queens. And it says, you know, the one we trust. You just, I mean, you know, you have her face. It says when the election is, and it puts the slogan right in front of you. Unlike those cluttered things I was just showing you. It's very straightforward. It really works. It really works pretty well. And on the back, it's time to re-elect Vicky Palladino for city council. Election day is Tuesday, November 4th. Not every flyer, believe it or not, points out like when election day is, Bobby. So it's like it's kind of common sense, but she had a good designer. And then just to show one more, she had what's called a door hanger. You know, you kind of go up to people's homes. There are a lot of homeowners in her district. You just kind of hang it on the door, so people come home from work, and it's like, oh, there's Vicky Palladino, the one we trust. Good messaging, good flyer, good move. I mean, you know, just kudos to her. Now, the person running against her, of course, is Ben Chow, firefighter for city council. He's running for the first time, and calling himself firefighter for city council tells you what he's leading with, that he's an FDNY member, a first responder, not a politician, it says. And on the back, he talks about the things that I want our neighborhoods to feel like the one I grew up in. He's got a little picture, if you zoom in there a little bit, he's got the guns out. Guy's in great shape, young, very healthy young man, a firefighter running for office. Let's look at something else. This I found was kind of interesting. An affordable housing fast track is on your ballot. And I was wondering, like, gee, who's trying to tell me how to vote? This is from the Charter Commission itself. They came up with these proposals, and in theory, they're neutral because it's the government, and they're not telling you how to vote, but the arrow's kind of pointing there, and it's like an affordable housing fast track is on your ballot.
And this is the Charter Commission, which was sort of set up by Mayor Adams, but they're the ones who developed all the questions that are on the ballot, right?
Yes,
so
exactly.
Kind of stands to reason that they're trying to push people.
Yeah, nudging you a little bit. Now, the City Council, if one of those proposals would take power away from the City Council. City Council's not happy about that, so the City Council has been putting out its mailing. And here's a person with a gagged mouth here. Mayor Adams misleading ballot proposals would silence communities. So it's somebody with, tape over their mouth. They look like they've been kidnapped or something. And on the back it says, his misleading proposals 2, 3, and 4 on the ballot will take away your community's power, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
And this is controversial because it's the City Council itself.
Yeah, this is the government paying
using taxpayer funds.
Absolutely, absolutely. And and then they have another version of it. Your neighborhood essentials are at stake in this election. And that's kind of, see, again, on the back, it kind of reveals kind of where they're coming from. Mayor Adams' misleading proposals 2, 3, and 4 will take away your community's power to demand the city and developers invest in your neighborhood. Less affordable housing, fewer public school improvements, fewer quality parks, more gentrification. I don't know if any of the facts that we've reported on support that as an inescapable conclusion, but that's the argument that they're making. Now, there are some really interesting things that are going on. People are putting out stuff that really has nothing to do with the election. This is Liam McCabe. He is the chairman of the Republican Party of Brooklyn. And I don't know how many people get to vote for the Republican Party of Brooklyn. I think it might be 50 people, the Republican district leaders. But he wants to get reelected, building a Republican Party that wins. Liam's vision for a stronger Republican Party in Brooklyn: real leadership, real experience, unity, not division, modernizing the party, recruiting the next generation, a different kind of politics.
And presumably these are very targeted, right? This mailer is not going out to Democrats in Brooklyn.
Yeah, you do not want to send this to anybody who's outside of the leadership of the Republican Party. Let's move on a little quickly. This is Julie Menon. She's running for re-election. The only reason I bring this up is that she probably does not have a very competitive race. However, she does want to be Speaker of the Council, and that is one reason why she's probably got these going out. Here's a really rough one. This is a council race out up in the Bronx, and this is just an attack on the incumbent. Corrupt, unethical, too extreme, Christy Marmorato. She's the Republican incumbent, and bad for the Bronx. And they've got like the jagged-looking font there, and on the back, right-wing radicalism, wrong for the Bronx, vote no, blah 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 blah. So, like, equal time, let's give her say. Christy Marmorato is endorsed by a bunch of law enforcement unions. When it comes to public safety, the finest, bravest, and boldest all agree Christy Marmorato is the only choice. 2 more real quick. Shekhar Krishnan. This is a person running for re-election, and it's a very standard kind of a thing. English on the front, Spanish on the back, luchando por nuestro futuro, but very cluttered, very busy. I mean, it's, I don't know. It probably won't hurt his chances any, but, and then this Manhattan District Attorney's race. Diana Florence, she's running for Manhattan District Attorney. She says she will make Manhattan safer. She's running as an independent. She's not the Democratic nominee. She's not the Republican nominee. She's running independent. But then honorable mention, I got to show this. I think you found this. There's a billboard out there in Manhattan that she sort of concocted or paid for or built up. It says, "Squeeze out Alvin Bragg with Diana Florence."
Is that a toothpaste?
Yeah, it looks like they're squeezing the district attorney out of a tube of toothpaste. I've never seen anything quite like that.
I was about to say that we didn't show that many negative ones, but here's one right up.
Well, right. It was too big to put in the mail, so they just put it on a great big poster, I guess. Anyway, that's a little bit of what things are looking at. And as I said, like when we talk 10 years from now, Bobby, I think everything's going to be digital, but for now, they're still sending stuff to people's homes.
And people will probably still continue to get these through Tuesday, maybe even later, depending on how often you open your mailbox. All right, Errol Lewis, thank you so much for that run through. Coming up, a judge's order may save food stamp benefits for some of those affected, but not all. We will explain in a report straight ahead. Stay with us. We're back in a minute.
This election year is all about New York City. There are 51 council seats up for grabs, races for our next city comptroller and the next public advocate.
Plus, an unprecedented race for mayor. That puts the power in your hands to decide who will run our city.
Our team of political experts will be covering every angle of this election to keep you informed on how it could affect you, so you can feel confident with your decision at the polls.
Stay with Spectrum News New York 1 for Decision 2025, exclusively on Spectrum.
It's only a game. It's only a little rivalry. It's only a ritual.
When I come home late,
and a few generations.
you're always there.
And only Spectrum TV includes all your favorite streaming apps with live TV at no extra cost. It's only a game. It's only everything.
Mom was always organized, but she started forgetting to pay her bills on time.
And she'd buy the same gifts over and over. Telling the girls about my Alzheimer's diagnosis was really hard.
At first, we had our cries, but then we were like, okay, let's make a plan.
Early detection gave us time to adapt together. It's so important for you to think about what you can do and making the most of what you have.
If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together.
From my time growing up in Queens watching New York 1 to my time reporting here, I've seen how quickly a story can change. At News All Day, we bring you the news as it's happening, from around the boroughs to local government to your neighborhood. Because our city never stops moving.
3, 2, 1.
Hi, I'm Shannon Ferry with the day's developing stories. But first,
Stay up to date and informed with News All Day, weekdays from noon to 4.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. As the government shutdown continues past its first full month, 2 federal judges are making last-minute interventions to direct the federal government to tap into emergency funds to issue at least partial payments for food assistance benefits that were set to expire tomorrow. It relieves a potential pressure point in the ongoing stalemate between Democrats and Republicans. Spectrum News political reporter Cassie Simeon has more from Washington, D.C. Good evening, Cassie.
Good evening, Bobby. And the feeling here in Washington is really that we are in this for the long haul, that there's no end in sight for this government shutdown. Both sides are incredibly dug in, but some Americans are able to breathe a slight sigh of relief tonight after those 2 federal judges said the federal government needed to make even partial SNAP payments to recipients reliant on that financial support. With just hours to spare before the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program known as SNAP was set to run out of funds, 2 federal judges interceded, directing the U.S. Department of Agriculture to use emergency contingency funds to release even partial payments to recipients as soon as possible. The assistance, a lifeline to millions of Americans.
I do not sleep the way I've slept before, thinking about it, what can I gonna do if I make it a nice, real decision. Pay my rent, pay my electricity, or put food on my table.
As October comes to a close, the impact of the government shutdown is inescapable. From growing lines at food banks as government employees remain without a paycheck, to ground stops at some of the country's biggest airports Friday morning, including Nashville and Austin, because there were not enough air traffic controllers working to safely put planes in the sky. President Donald Trump growing frustrated by the lack of movement towards reopening the government, writing on Truth Social, because of the fact that Democrats have gone stone cold crazy, the choice is clear. Initiate the nuclear option, get rid of the filibuster, and make America great again. The controversial move would change the Senate rules to lower the number of votes needed to pass a temporary measure to fund the government. It would effectively allow Republicans to pass a bill to reopen the government without support from Democrats. Republicans in Congress distancing themselves from the president's position.
The filibuster has traditionally been viewed as a very important safeguard. If the shoe was on the other foot, I don't think our team would like it.
Senate Majority Leader John Thune earlier this month rejected such an idea.
The filibuster protects. It's been a voice for the minority. It gives the minority a say in what happens in this country. The founders created the Senate uniquely that way. for that specific reason.
A spokesperson for Thune confirmed to Spectrum News today that his position has not changed. Now, with the shutdown set to continue until at least Monday, Democrats say they will keep pushing for expanded Affordable Care Act subsidies until Republicans negotiate a deal. Republicans maintain that no deal will be cut until the government is reopened. Bobby.
So, Cassie, as far as the food benefits go, I mean, this is relief, but presumably it's temporary, right? How long does this emergency funding last before we're right back to where we were today?
Yeah, I mean, the reality is that contingency funding is not going to be full payments, and it won't cover the full month of November. So we're in real dire situation here, and that is, again, temporary relief of this pressure point of getting these payments out to Americans. But Democrats and Republicans really need to get to the negotiating table here, especially if Democrats are going to remain firm that ACA subsidies are the make or break here, that they're not going to give Republicans the votes they need to reopen the government unless they come to the negotiating table. The Senate is out until at least Monday. The House not looking to come back until there is some sort of deal done, or as Speaker Mike Johnson has said, you know, we've done our part. Now it's time for the Senate to do theirs. And so you have this real gridlock happening here in Washington, and all of these Americans that are reliant on that SNAP funding are really in the balance, and it's quite unfortunate.
And then for those who are reliant on the Affordable Care Act, what can they expect? Because we have open enrollment starting for that in November as well, right?
Yeah, so that starts November 1. So tomorrow on Saturday, people who get their health care through the Affordable Care Act marketplace are going to see those skyrocketing premiums that Democrats have really been beating the drum on for the last several weeks now. And that is going to be their reality if those extensions aren't put in place. And right now, Republicans and Democrats, again, in a gridlock. It doesn't seem like Republicans are willing to give an inch on this, and Democrats are therefore withholding their votes. So there could be millions of Americans that are priced out of the market entirely, meaning they won't have health care come the new year. And that doesn't mean that they don't get sick, that they don't go to the hospital and seek emergency care. It means that that is going to then fall on the hospitals to eat that cost. And that's going to drive up premiums for everyone else across the country, whether they have insurance through the Affordable Care Act or through private insurance or through their employer. So overall, this has a huge impact on Americans across the country. They just haven't felt it just yet.
All right, Cassie Simeon in Washington, D.C., thank you so much for that report. It is time now for a break. Coming up, we will bring you Errol's conversation with Susan Kang, a member of the Democratic Socialists of America, as part of this week's You Decide podcast episode. Stay with us. We are back in a minute.
My time at New York One has shown me that in the city that never sleeps, the news never stops. So as the day winds down, turn to the rush hour.
Good afternoon, I'm Monica Perkman.
To catch up on the stories that matter across the 5 boroughs, with in-depth interviews from the city's newsmakers, plus the latest forecast. Catching you up with today, preparing you for tomorrow. Right here on the Rush Hour. Weekdays from 4 to 7 p.m.
There's an international travel plan with Spectrum that was an additional $10 a month, as opposed to paying a ridiculous amount per day for roaming fees. This literally felt like my old phone carrier was reaching their hand into my wallet and just helping themselves to some of my cash. I like having no surprises when it comes to my cell phone bill. And with Spectrum, that's been the case. So it's saved me a ton of money.
Real customers, real savings. To see how much you can save, visit spectrum.com/save.
I'm Chris Jakovic. I served in the United States Air Force, and I deployed 3 times. So in 2017, I was serving as an Air Force First Sergeant. Our motto in that role is, my job is people, everyone is my business. But unfortunately in that year, I would lose my own brother, Lance Corporal Adam Jakovic, to suicide. The majority of veteran suicides are from guns. I store my weapons securely, not only for myself, but for my family. My service never stops.
At Spectrum Noticias, we recognize that our New York City community is vibrant and diverse.
Spectrum Noticias delivers balanced coverage of the stories that matter in our communities and across the country.
Our journalists are based in the neighborhoods we cover, ensuring you get in-depth reporting on what's happening in the places we call home.
So join us at Spectrum Noticias. We're always on, always there for you.
Now available on your TV. Check your local listings. Also available on the Spectrum News app.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall, where we are turning our focus back to the race for mayor. Zohran Mamdani was a relative unknown prior to his bid for mayor, but he has been a part of city politics for some time. Susan King is a political science professor at John Jay College and a leading member of the New York City Democratic Socialist of America, of which Mamdani is also a member. This week, she joined Errol for the You Decide podcast to discuss the twists and turns of the mayor's race, early voting numbers, and how the DSA helped elevate Mamdani into a national figure. Here's a part of that conversation.
This is an unsolvable question, but
Sure.
you traffic in that as a political scientist.
Yeah.
Is Mamdani succeeding because he's a socialist or because he's a gifted politician?
So that's something I don't claim to be somebody who can differentiate between different variables. It's hard to know. Because those two things they're very much part of who he is. Like, he is a socialist and he is a very gifted politician. But he was a gifted politician when he ran in 2020, and that was a much closer race.
Mm-hmm.
But it was also very different. It was a COVID race. We were almost exclusively doing phone banking. But he hasn't really made the splash that he's made now as an assembly person either, because being one of 100 plus assembly Democrats doesn't really give you tons of opportunities. But he's kind of been doing what he did as an assembly person. It's just that it's taking off now. So he did a lot of work around educating around the budget. It's just that people didn't pay attention back then. People are paying attention now. I think it's a combination of his talents, his message, and the moment. I think the moment matters a lot. I don't know if we would have this kind of success if Kamala Harris won. I would imagine no, because people are they're more interested in an alternative to the mainstream Democratic message because it failed.
Interesting. Is his political, to what extent is his political success due to the DSA? And I understand, as a member of the organization who helped build the organization, you're maybe going to be inclined to think that way. But from the outside, I see 11,000 members of the DSA, and I see something like 90,000 people who have signed up to volunteer for the campaign. And I'm thinking the tail does not wag the dog, right? I mean, he's built something, but what's the relationship there?
So I like to think of it as he became the person he is, at least partly due to his work in the DSA. So, for example, he was a field lead during the Caban campaign. So he developed a sense of how to run field operations, that kind of thing. But, he's the person he is prior to working with us as well, which is, somebody who probably had a deeper, more sophisticated understanding about politics, because his father is a celebrated professor of politics who, when I first met Zohran, I was like, I wonder if he's related to Mamdani, or is that just a common last name? I didn't ask him.
Interesting.
But of course, I was familiar with his father's work. So I think it's one of those things where I don't know if we could have a runaway success for somebody who occupies this ideological position without the organization. But the organization is one of many very important ingredients. Like, day one, his endorsers included a lot of community organizations that draw on various immigrant communities and communities of color where we don't have the same strengths. And I think they matter as well.
Sure.
Right? Making those connections, right, with South Asian, with Latino, with East Asian communities is also really important for his coalition. And also him being a young person who's very social media savvy, that makes that connection as well. So the DSA, I'd say, is maybe necessary but not sufficient if we're talking about political science, right? But we can't know. We can't run the alternative experience.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, look, it's fascinating to me because, he draws a lot of support from a lot of communities, as you're mentioning. And we say South Asian, and that's kind of slang, as is, the term Desis, right? Which is basically the Indian diaspora or the South Asian diaspora.
Right. Well, subcontinent is what my sister-in-law's family's from India. She just calls it the subcontinent. Right?
Well, it's true, because it's Bangladeshis, right? And it's Guyanese. You'll find Desis in Trinidad and Tobago. You'll find them everywhere, kind of spread and living lots of different lives, and they have lots of different migration streams into New York City, and they've formed a lot of different communities.
Geographies as well.
Yes.
Right. You'll find some in Brooklyn. You'll find them in Queens. Right. You'll probably find some in the Bronx as well. Like they live in all different communities. And one of my students once told me, he's like, "Oh, there's a different vibe in Brooklyn. Like the South Asians there are not as chill," is what he told me, as the ones in Queens. And I was like, "What does that mean?" He's like, "Just don't worry about it." That's what he said.
If you have to ask, you'll never understand.
But it's one of those things where we have a lot of young kids. I don't know. I call them kids, but they're adults. We have young adults in DSA who love to look at the data. And one of the things that they found is that one of the communities that's very reliably supportive of DSA candidates, which is not to say necessarily DSA or DSA ideology, but DSA candidates are Bangladeshis. And so they come out very strong for our candidates. And I think about why. Part of the reason why is that they're a more recently arriving community, and so maybe they're not as integrated into party structures the way, for example, like Caribbean diasporas are. They might have more familiarity and less fear of left politics than other diasporas might. And then they also happen to live very adjacent or deeply integrated into this quote-unquote commie corridor, right? So there's tons of Bangladeshis in, like, where I live in Jackson Heights. There's a lot of them in Astoria. And so it's sort of a confluence of just coincidences and historical factors, I think, that have made them a very reliable.
Oh, let me give you another factor. Throw this in your pile. Is a collective economics, the Grameen Bank model. I spent some time a long time ago working with this stuff with Muhammad Yunus, actually, who's they're currently leading the nation in Bangladesh after all of the political turmoil they had there. But he established all of these little village lending circles.
Right, the microcredits?
Yeah, microcredit. And it became the model, really, for a whole global movement. But it's deeply, deeply rooted in the culture there. And it's one of those transfers that comes over here. And you get a small lending circle. You have created a level of social solidarity and potential political activity that you can't match in normal politics.
Yeah, so like not all communities are connected, right? And so some communities are more connected than others. And I imagine that, for example, the work that Zoran did with taxi drivers, that would resonate and move through deeply connected communities and be very effective, right? I'm sure you've seen that video of him leaving reporters to go chat with a taxi driver.
Yes.
So that work that he did was, became very iconic and well known among communities where there are a lot of taxi drivers.
Oh yeah, no, that was all deserved. I wrote a couple of articles about that. Yeah. It was, and in fact, it was one of these things. I was actually startled. I went down there because there'd been, I think at that point, 8 suicides among taxi drivers. And it involved some corrupt credit unions and some other, sort of shady lenders who had led them into a trap. And for whatever reason, the de Blasio administration was not bailing out these drivers as quickly as they could or should have. And I knew about the taxi cab credit unions because of the work that I used to do. And I went down there and I figured there'd be a bunch of the usual suspects who were out there standing in solidarity with the taxi drivers. And it was only Mamdani. He was doing the hunger strike with them, and I was thinking, it's like, guys, this is an easy one. These are, this is symbolically, at least, this is as bread and butter New York City as you can get.
Right.
These guys had a medallion. They drive 12 hours a day. They've got families that they're trying to take care of. Everybody should understand what this is about. They got ripped off by some shady lenders, and nobody was even asking for a bailout. It was just like reorganize the loan so that they have some hope of being able to pay it off.
Right.
You can catch the full episode of You Decide wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on New York One's YouTube channel. It will also air on New York One this Saturday night at 11 p.m. right before a new episode of our Off Topic on Politics podcast. It is time now for a break. Coming up, we will continue the conversation on the race for mayor when I'm joined by 2 top reporters in our Friday Reporters Roundtable. Stay with us. We are back in a minute.
The next Downtown Local 6 train After 30 years of forecasting for New York, I've learned it takes a dedicated team to cover all the weather our city has to offer.
I'm so honored to be a meteorologist here at New York One because as a Brooklyn kid, this is the station that I grew up watching. Morning, noon, or night, our team is here to bring you accurate forecasts you can count on, from severe weather updates to our weather on the ones. Watch the New York One weather experts on your TV and on the go with the Spectrum News app.
Your entertainment the way you want it. With Spectrum TV, all these streaming apps are included at no extra cost. So you can watch anything. Movies, series, sports, reality, news.
Here's a look at today's top stories.
Exclusive originals.
We await your orders.
And even more of your favorites with live TV. Stream across your devices and enjoy anywhere.
See you later.
Get it all with Spectrum TV.
I'm an ex-drug dealer, and I'll be your sub today. Two milligrams of fentanyl can be lethal. A lethal dose is in here. Who gets it, I won't know.
It's cheap, it's potent, and it's profitable.
The sad reality is fentanyl is being mixed into everything now.
More kitchen now.
My father was a New York City firefighter. My mission, like his, is to serve New Yorkers in a city that doesn't stop when the sun goes down. Being with New York One since the beginning, I'm now honored to join you even earlier each weeknight. Starting at 8 with New York Tonight, we'll explore the latest news developments, followed by New York One at 10 to wrap up your day. So join me each weeknight starting at 8 right here on New York One.
Will be determined not in a house built by slaves, but in a city built by freemen, in a city built by unionists and immigrants.
Together, New York, we're going to freeze the... Together, New York, we're going to make buses fast and...
I have yet to find a millennial or a Gen Z who's a fan of Andrew Cuomo, and especially if they're young ladies, 30 and less, because he loves to flirt with them.
The Democratic Party is having a civil war. You don't hear it, you don't see it, but it's going on in this election.
The best thing to do right now is canvass. Is get out there and actually make the case to New Yorkers.
I would like to be able to stand here and say there is a Santa, but it is not true. The mayor cannot freeze the rent.
The Cuomo team, the most dystopian, disturbing campaign I've ever seen. The negativity, like, unbelievable.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. That was a look back at what some of the candidates for mayor had to say on the campaign trail in these final days of early voting. And here now to discuss this and more are two top journalists in our Friday Reporters Roundtable. Joining us for the very first time is Ested Herndon. He is a host and editorial director with Vox Media. He was formerly a national politics reporter for the New York Times and earlier this month published a feature on Mamdani after following him on the trail for several months. And joining us again is Joe Anuda, who covers City Hall for Politico New York. Thank you both for being here. A lot going on here in these closing days of the campaign. It seemed for a minute there like Andrew Cuomo had caught some momentum. He had a strong debate. He's picking up all these endorsements. But then we got a snapshot of the race, a few snapshots of the race on Wednesday and Thursday with these polls that came out. And Joe, what did we learn? I mean, it seems like Mamdani is in pretty good shape according to the polls.
Yeah, I mean, I think Cuomo picked up a little momentum. I think a lot of it had to do with Eric Adams dropping out before. And I think really his only play right now is to try and hoover up as many Republican votes as he can. So you're seeing he's going on Fox News all the time. He appeared with a Republican council member today, Ina Vernikov. He released this statement that was very sort of NIMBY-esque, anti-zoning. I'm going to keep character in low-density neighborhoods. Those are a lot of Curtis Sliwa voters. And I think he's made some progress there. Some of the polls showed half of Republican voters were going to vote for him, but it's just nowhere near enough to catch up.
And the Emerson poll had Mamdani up 25 points. That's a lot of points, and a real uphill climb for Cuomo to close that gap.
Yeah, I think the one caveat I'll make with all these polls is I think the pollsters are having a lot of trouble determining what the sample should be, because we just haven't really seen a general election like this in a while. And you saw, they missed some of Mamdani's support in the primary. I think generally that's, I don't see a lot of the uncounted votes going to Cuomo, but I do think the polls might be a little different than what we're seeing once we get the returns on Election Day.
Ested, let me ask you about the piece you wrote, which was in the Times a few weeks ago. You spent some time with Mamdani and talked to a lot of people around him. And this was after he won the primary, but around the time he was starting to have these meetings with people, kind of this charm offensive with people who didn't support him, right?
Yeah, it was really about the kind of steps he took after he won the primary to make sure that he was not only kind of growing the margin for a general election, but setting the groundwork for a governing vision. I think they understood that there was some skepticism about experience, about some views, particularly on policing and some distance with the DSA. And privately, he's shown some willingness to put some distance there. He's telling people that he won't have litmus tests when it comes to governing. He made clear, obviously, that he would ask Jessica Tisch to stay on, which was a key kind of desire for some of these folks. And I think more than anything, he's tried to tell people, I know where my shortcomings are. And I think trying to say, at minimum, that means that Andrew Cuomo or Eric Adams had less of an argument going into the general. I think now we're seeing Cuomo respond to that and is really, and frankly, embrace the fact that this is a litmus test on Mamdani. He's trying to turn that negative. I think he's turned up what I would call somewhat overt Islamophobic attacks, but he's really recognizing that this is a bout to our Mamdani, and I think that's going to break one way or the other. And to your point about polling, I think that has been kind of hard to track. But in the early voting numbers, we have seen the electorate get younger. And I think independent of Cuomo, Mamdani's seeing the kind of areas of the city that have that sub-40 population growing in terms of coming out on Halloween weekend, maybe through the New York City Marathon this weekend. And that's what I think the campaign is looking at. Even beyond what Cuomo is doing, are they getting their own people to come out as step one?
And then there's this question of, if and when Mamdani actually takes office, with these policies that he is trying to implement or maybe might pull back on, what does that do to his relationship with the DSA? Yeah. Because, the DSA is, counting on him to enact some of these policies that he has sort of softened on, right? And what does that do to that dynamic?
I think for now, the organization, this is, they've never had someone with this much power get elected. So I think leadership and I think the majority of the organization are trying to give Mamdani a little grace. Give him a little more berth to make compromise and do things that don't necessarily align with their ideals because they want to play the long game here. He has the power to really usher in some huge policies that, the Democratic Socialists support. And so spending a bunch of energy fighting him on every little thing, if it doesn't align, that's the goal. Whether that happens in practice, I think, is another matter. We've seen they've been very ideological and almost dogmatic when they pulled their endorsement from AOC. They turned on Jamal Bowman when he was running in Westchester over their stances on Israel. So I think it's very much a wait-and-see thing.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting dynamic between leadership and rank and file. We know leadership kind of wants to have a long-term view of this relationship, recognizes the moment that Mamdani provides them. But DSA has been a group that has a oppositional relationship to politicians in general. They kind of love pulling them down. And so it's somewhat of a reorientation of their collective to say, okay, are we going to think about the ways that we're going to be collaborative with them rather than try to nitpick every single place where there's ideological distance? But there are real gaps starting to emerge. Even the kind of folks we talk to in leadership, originally I remember coming to them as we were starting it, saying, what about keeping Jessica Tisch on? What about the fact that he's backed away from a millionaire's tax? Are those things bothering you? And at first they were saying, oh, no, we want to give him space. When we were following up towards the end of that, they were saying, oh, there's a little more uncomfort there. I think that shows you the kind of thin line he's going to have to walk because the kind of the way he's going to build support in Albany might be in direct opposition with keeping that base in line.
All right, you guys hold it right there. We got to take a quick break. I will have more with these reporters in just 2 minutes. Stay with us.
Here's the deal. People need a place to explore national issues that have an impact on their community. To understand those issues better, we're bringing together our team of local political journalists from across the country to break down what's happening. So join us every week to catch up on the key stories making a big difference across the nation and in your local community.
Watch The Big Deal with Errol Lewis Friday nights at 9 on Spectrum News New York 1. Available on all of your favorite devices exclusively on Spectrum.
My name is Gail, and we are in my showroom for Florist Fire Design House. Getting Spectrum set up for my business was extremely smooth. They had it set up within an hour, and I was online and ready to go and run my business. Spectrum helps me stay online. You know, I have to be able to be online at 5 a.m. when the market's open. Without Spectrum, it wouldn't be possible.
Get up to 4 months free when you bundle award-winning internet. Visit spectrum.com/business to learn more.
Every day tells a new story. At Mornings on One, we're dedicated to bringing you the stories that matter most to start your day with in-depth coverage of the day's developing news.
I'm Pat Kernan. Here are the stories we're following this morning.
And weather updates every 10 minutes.
Some morning sunshine possible, clouds take over.
It's our responsibility to get you the information you need before you head out the door. Mornings on One, weekdays starting at 6 on the Spectrum News app. Free for Spectrum customers.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. I'm once again joined by my reporters roundtable, Ested Herndon of Vox Media and Joe Anuda of Politico. So it seems like Mamdani's Muslim faith and this question of Islamophobia have been front and center the past week or so of this race. Talk about, you know, the relationship that Mamdani has to his faith. He talked about it with you. Yeah. And then last week it sort of came to a head and he gave this very passionate speech about his faith and the attacks that Muslim New Yorkers have faced.
Yeah, it's really central to both his personal identity and his political identity. When he joins, even before he joins DSA, he joins the Muslim Democratic Club of New York. These are some of the first people he was connected with, even in Democratic politics. So even as he says, oh, I'm a member of DSA, but I've always been a Democrat, that's often been through these campaigns that he's been connected with. And as he was an organizer, he learned a couple lessons, particularly how to raise money in those communities in terms of early support, but also how it kind of can create I think, a long-term bond that he felt grew beyond identity politics. I know there's been a question in Democratic politics right now, how much should a candidate center who they are? When I asked him this question, he said that he really goes back to how it changed his own politics, that he put in front of his father about how he was tired of being kind of seen as a Muslim in America. How he was tired of being seen as an immigrant and kind of an other. And he said that his father told him it also allowed him to see the truth in a place, and that really informed his inspiration. And so I think when Cuomo kind of turned up that dial on this front, that's a conversation Zohran Mamdani wants to have, because he understands that there is a collective power both behind his candidacy, linking what he calls a mosaic of immigrants in New York City.
And then, meanwhile, Cuomo pushes back and refutes the idea that, you know, that Mamdani could have ever possibly been the victim of Islamophobia. But in the process, he has been, you know, standing next to people, whether it's an interviewer, you know, Sid Rosenberg, or even the event with Mayor Adams last week, where Adams tied Mamdani to Islamic extremism. It's like, Cuomo's being put in this position where maybe he's not saying things necessarily that are Islamophobic, but he's next to people who are saying them and not necessarily challenging it, right?
Well, and then he gets asked about it afterwards, and he's like, he denies he said it. I mean, he was on with Sid Rosenberg, and I think Cuomo asked Sid, well, you know, could you imagine if Zohran Mamdani was the mayor during 9/11? Sid, I could. He would be cheering, and Cuomo just sort of chuckled and said, that's another problem. We wrote a story about it, and then his campaign was furious and said he never said that. But I think, to your point, he's been appearing next to all these people. His campaign has been putting out ads. There was an AI ad that showed Mamdani eating rice with his hands. I think there's just...
Which they took down, right?
They blamed on a junior staffer, but it was up, you know, and it was paid for by the campaign.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, at this time I would fail a quiz of who said it, Trump or, you know, Andrew Cuomo. And I think it really speaks to how much this campaign has been defined by him, about being against Mamdani and against the left rather than being for something. And so I think there's a larger question that the center and Andrew Cuomo have, even going forward, is like, what are they advocating for? And in my opinion, like, you know, Andrew Cuomo used to be for something, right? Like, there used to be those things I think that they would define as their calling card, but beyond competence, beyond experience, what is the affirmative vision, I think, from folks who are on that more center-left side? I think that's a question beyond this race.
Yeah. And I think that even shows up in the polling. There was the poll that found, I think, 70% of Mamdani supporters were voting for him because of his policies. Something like over 30, almost 40% of Cuomo voters were voting for him because he wasn't Mamdani.
Exactly.
Just in our final 30 seconds or so, let me get your take on the best story of the week, which was the Bill de Blasio story. The Times of London ran a story saying de Blasio had sort of thrown cold water on some of Mamdani's policies. Turns out they had the wrong Bill de Blasio, and it was, I guess you could call him an imposter. He's just another guy who had the same last name.
Another guy who I think treated it with the kind of funniness it deserved and kind of played along with the bit. Turns out he's been doing that for a while.
Yeah, I mean, he's been getting these emails for like 12 years of people thinking he's the mayor, and a lot of them were not very nice.
A journalistic truth, though, double check, you know? I mean, this really does have this really has some journal lessons, too.
Absolutely. All right, guys, thank you both so much for joining us tonight. That is going to do it for tonight's show. A quick programming note, if you missed any part of the final debate in the race for mayor hosted by New York One, you can still catch it on our air this Saturday at 8 p.m. And then on Sunday, join us again at 8 p.m. for a special election report. We will talk about the historic nature of this race, bring you some of the best interviews on the campaign trail, and much more. And stick with New York One, because coming up next is the 52nd annual Halloween Parade. Thanks for watching, everybody, and have a great weekend. We will see you the next time on Inside City.
And that's a look at some of what's in the papers this morning.
You done with the sports section?
Today's story is about the latest chapter for a beloved local business.
It's a beautiful day with temperatures in the 60s, but showers are expected in the next hour.
In a city that's always on the go, it's important to stop to hear the stories that connect us.
The news that matters to New Yorkers. That's what brings us together. That's Mornings on One.
Weekdays starting at 6.
Exclusively on Spectrum.
My name is Gail, and we are in my showroom for Florist Fire Design House. We are a full production wedding and event company that focuses on florals. Getting Spectrum set up for my business was extremely smooth. They were here the same day, had it set up within an hour, and I was online and ready to go and run my business. You know, I have to be able to be online at 5 a.m. when the market's open. And if I'm contacting a merchant via email or placing an order online, without Spectrum, it wouldn't be possible.
One more road.
Spectrum is reliable, they're committed, they're fast, and they really take care of me as a business owner. Last year, when the really bad hurricane came through, our internet stayed the entire time. One of the businesses down the street, she was like, wait a minute, how are you still online? And I was like, Spectrum, baby. You gotta get Spectrum.
Get award-winning internet for your business. Up to 4 months free when bundled. Visit spectrum.com/business to learn more.
This election year is all about New York City. There are 51 council seats up for grabs, races for our next city comptroller and the next public advocate.
Plus, an unprecedented race for mayor. That puts the power in your hands to decide who will run our city.
Our team of political experts will be covering every angle of this election to keep you